How do products get made at Microsoft? I know you want to know. Welcome to another episode of Meet the Makers. This is where you get to hear directly from the product leaders who are driving so much innovation across Microsoft in the era of AI. I'm so excited because you people know that I am a core SharePoint geek, right? That's where I came from. And today I have CJ Town with me. CJ, hello, welcome.
Hi, Karuana. It's great to be here.
Fantastic. CJ is working on some of the most amazing experiences that you're going to see in this collaboration and content space. And so we're going to take you through a deep dive today of everything that's happening. There's so much to talk about Copilot agents in SharePoint. And what I really want to do is I want to show people what this is really like. So they have a visual in their own mind of everything we're going to discuss. And yes, I promise you, we're going to get to IT controls and governance. Don't you worry. I know everybody wants to know about that, but let's take a look at the product experience right now before we keep going. Let's go.
Now with Agent Builder in SharePoint, you can turn every SharePoint site into an agent. You're a field service technician, and there's an issue that requires further research and follow-up. Your team keeps all its customer records, from deployment to maintenance reports, on a SharePoint site. You can create an agent with a single click from any SharePoint site, library, or folder. It can answer questions about the source material, reason over that material, and take action, just like a well-informed teammate would. In just a few seconds, your Copilot agent is ready to be used or shared with others. Let's add it to your Teams chat so everyone can work with the agent. You can @mention the agent as you would any other teammate, sharing new information and asking it questions, and it will respond in real time. Now everything in that SharePoint site is immediately accessible and useful.
Okay, my brain is exploding with the opportunities for how this could help people. So anybody out there who's thinking like, I host a lot of Know Before You Go to events. I host a lot of program readouts. We run launch ship rooms where there's lots of content and questions and people are always saying, Karuana, blah, blah, blah. I could have Copilots for all those different scenarios, right?
Yes, absolutely. Like that's exactly what we're trying to build here, to try and find these scenarios where we can help you. And you've listed off quite a few that immediately could be useful.
CJ, what was it really like for you as you moved into this era of AI, right? What is this like now for you as a product maker?
Well, I think it's just a really great time to be in product and to be around this technology. I mean, one of the things that I thought about as I was given this opportunity to lead this area is really what are the things that I can bring that will shape how people use AI? So not just having the AI, hey, it's a cool tech, but what are the problems that we're actually trying to solve? What are the things that will actually make people's lives better? That's the part that really excites me about working in this space right now.
Because I have this history in the SharePoint space, and it's such a foundational element of Microsoft 365, it was one of my favorite parts of the September 16th Copilot Wave 2 announcements, right? And it really resonated with me. This idea of being able to access content in this way. But what made you think of creating this experience? Was it really about those problems? What was the genesis of Copilot agents in SharePoint?
Well, I think the main thing it came down to was, what are the ways that Copilot agents can actually help you in your day-to-day and in this communication of the knowledge that you have and the knowledge you want to share. And SharePoint has that. Like SharePoint is that center of where people are keeping their knowledge, where they're collaborating on documents. So is there something that we could add to the experience of SharePoint users that actually helps, one, a content owner or a communicator get their message out in a way that's really approachable for their audience? And two, what are the processes that go into creating these ideas, and how can we build something that brings additional knowledge to that process and lets you work with it while you're in this space of collaboration?
That's so insightful. And I feel like, of course, my team is working on all this adoption of Copilot and AI experiences. And I feel like one of the things that people struggle with a little bit is exactly what you're talking about, connecting these new capabilities to their day-to-day work, like what they do every day. As a product maker, are you hearing directly from customers? How is the process of product making connecting to these new experiences as you're basically creating something emerging? It's not like you're working on something that already existed. Like, this is brand new stuff. This is like core innovation. How does that work?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we've been able to do, and I feel really fortunate about this, is that we were able to set up a private preview program to get this into the hands of customers and get their feedback really at a time when we were just building and not quite sure how the flow would be. So for one, we got a ton of interest when we first brought this idea to customers back in build. We had a nomination process and we got a lot of input and a lot of nominations from that. And what that allowed us to do is really target about 80 tenants and have them try it out. So what's great about this group is that not only were we able to give them early code, but we were able to get really early on the ideas that they had in mind. So we're actually getting a lot of feedback from these preview customers. And I think as well, because it's an early concept, it's often hard to just explain it through pictures. And so getting it into the hands of these customers and having them use it, we actually also saw from their side that this recognition of what was actually happening. Because it's one thing to tell you how it works, and it's another thing to actually try it and see how to use it within your day-to-day work, or even the scenarios that you were trying to light up. So there's been a lot of good learnings that we've gotten from this program that we set up. The other thing was in just talking to the customers as we were recruiting or going through the nominations, we were able to ask about what people wanted and whether or not we could fit that. So we were collecting user stories on how people felt that they would use this. What are the sorts of things there? I mean, one of the overwhelming scenarios was really just about, I want to make sure that when somebody comes to my site, for example, or I have this process, that they're looking at the information that I want them to be looking at, right? Like, search is great, but it goes across everything. But what if you had that content that really is going to be the place where you should get all your answers? Now you've got a way to build something that you can interact with and get answers from that location. So that was one of like the very early and almost common scenarios that came up. But that really just led to all sorts of different ways that people could use or build these Copilot agents. Once you add that, personality or those instructions on top of that, I think the favorite one that I've seen so far is really on something that actually helps engineers, like product makers. So, as part of our product design, we do a lot of things around content design. So it's not just about how something looks, it's how we describe it. So I had an example that somebody had brought to me around them actually creating like a rewrite to do strings for lack of a better word for it. But effectively, they were able to ground their Copilot on the resources and the patterns, the best practices, the style guidelines as their source of data, and then have a Copilot that helps you rewrite certain strings so that you're following the guidelines, you're following best practices and giving you suggestions on that, which was just like, that's taking it from question and answer to something that you can see can really help during your flow of work.
Absolutely. And I think what you just described is Copilot helping to build a Copilot experience. Kind of like a mirror reflection moment. I feel like I'm having right now. So, but I followed what you were saying. And I think the other thing that I heard in that conversation, that response, was how the customers were helping to shape the experience directly. Did this also color your thinking or your strategy on making sure that this was really a business user focused capability? Like, there's no code. I don't have to be a developer. I don't even have to be a SharePoint builder to really understand how to leverage this Copilot. Isn't that right?
Yeah. What we were really targeting is to put this for everyone to use. And when I say that, I mean that business user is exactly that. You have a need, whether it's pulling in a subject matter expert on a particular subject and being able to create that for you so that you can pull it in. I mean, even from like a product development setting, especially because we're using it for customers as well as internally, I mean, specifications, like all sorts of things where even when I write the document, I forget. If somebody asks me a question, I've got a way to go and really, really verify that I'm doing things right. And now that I have this Copilot agent that is possibly on my specs, I can actually take that and give it to somebody else and say, hey, why don't you get some answers here? And if you can't get what you want, reach out to me. So there's really this like helping myself, which in turn helps the team, and then that collaboration just is as much, it just feels like it's changing how we we start to interact with both the AI as well as the people that we work with.
Can you explain to us the different kinds of copilots that you're building?
So there's the very first one, like you said, there's a built-in. So every SharePoint site right now will come with a Copilot that is scoped to the SharePoint site. So what that means is that pages library, it's that document library. Still to come. We heard loud and clear. We need to include lists, but right now it's those two assets. And what that allows you is now this new way to interact with your SharePoint site, right? You can come in there. You could go through the navigation. You could kind of use the search box, but what if you just had that companion there and it says, hey, I'm ready to help you. And anything you want to know about this site, I'm going to try and answer your questions. So that just comes with it. Every site's going to have one of those. But then we recognize, right, there's going to be purpose-built things that you might want to do as well. So a very common scenario is really around onboarding. So you've got your project team site. Sure, I can go in here and I can go ask about all these things, but wouldn't it be helpful if, in addition to the site one, you also had an onboarding Copilot or agent that helped you along? And it was very specific on, let's say, a set of documents or a set of assets that you have that you feel are the good introductory assets for your organization or for anybody onboarding onto your team. And that it actually acts like someone who's helping you onboard. It's, helping you with questions. It's behaving like it's trying to help you along as you start to learn all the new materials and prompt you to learn more and put you on a path where you can onboard a lot quickly because you've got this focused Copilot agent to help you there. So that's just one example that I've seen that's really common as far as that custom aspect of it. So we've got the built-in one, you can use it right away, and then you can create these custom built ones to help your audience get along with that. But then there's this other aspect of, the SharePoint site starting from there and wanting to present your information and your knowledge in a different way. But then there's just the other aspect of creating like a purpose-built expert that you can share with other teams that may not necessarily come to your site. So this could be something around like a specific document library that you have or folder that you have that has perhaps a list of manuals or instructions and such. And so then you can build yourself something like that that's maybe more purpose built for, say, a partner team that you could share with instead of just being like something that's talking to a person that's just coming to the site to learn information.
I'm going to slow this down a little bit because this is new information for people, and that was a lot. So I think, and make sure that I'm following you, right? For what I heard you say is that there's 3 different kinds, and that every SharePoint site is going to have its own. And I think of that in the scenario where I have a really big team. We have a SharePoint site together. We have all sorts of documents, and I want the team to be able to easily find and reason over that information. So that's the thing that's going to come out of the box. Mm-hmm. But in that same site, I have kind of stakeholder facing information, people who there's a core production team, for instance, but I have all the speakers. I could build a SharePoint site, a Copilot through this agent that is on specific information in that SharePoint site. Did I get that right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So you can pick specific areas that you want to focus on. Yeah.
Now, with that one, is that what I was seeing in the video? I can share it in Teams as well?
That's exactly right. So now you can build something and drop it in Teams. And actually, that's one of the core scenarios that we've seen people see great value on is really creating a Copilot agent that has an expertise and then putting it into a Teams chat where the people on the Teams chat are in different time zones, for example, right? Yes. So you say questions around how a service works. And normally when they work in that Teams chat, everyone's ask a question. You might have to wait until whoever knows about it wakes up or starts working, that sort of thing. You've got this delay. Whereas now you've got an agent that can help answer some of those questions to fill in that time gap. It doesn't mean it knows everything, but it might get you past a hump. It might give you, an entry point when it responds to the source document. You can go and read more about it, but it's that ability to be productive and to unblock yourself because you've got this Copilot agent there to help you.
And you're also really highlighting something that we've been talking about in SharePoint for a really long time, which is as the knowledge repository for your organization. And in this case, it doesn't matter how big or small you are, right? Being able to have a Copilot focused on key documents that you're updating. One of the things, as you were mentioning, that I was thinking about is like our FAQs for events. Well, people ask very common questions on a regular basis, but every once in a while there's some new one. As I update that repository of information, because it's in SharePoint and attached to Copilot, I don't have to do anything to the Copilot, right? It's just going to see that new information.
Pick it up. That's correct. Yeah. So that's the thing, is that these Copilot agents, they reference that knowledge. They're not taking a snapshot. So it's changing. As things change, your Copilot agent responds and responds with the right answer. These are the cases where it's not just about easy dissemination of knowledge. It's dissemination of the right knowledge, the one that you want people to have. Yeah.
And then I think you talked about a third kind, which was a specific kind of Copilot that maybe has more portability. Is that how I should think of the third kind?
Yeah, I guess it is the last two I talked about are very similar, but I think it's more about the audience, right? So you're going to create things that you want people coming to your SharePoint site to engage with, because they can engage with your knowledge in a different way. The portable one is really about intent of how it's used, right? So you may not intend for people to come to the site to see it in our Copilot agent switcher and pick it from there. It may be just something that you're building because it's going to help, let's say, my conversation with you, Karuana, right? Like something that's going to help a task that we're working on. I'm going to build it for myself, share it with you, and we're going to use it together. And then maybe we keep it, maybe we don't. Like there's this notion of being easy to create, being easy to use. And then if you're done with it, easy to not have it around and in your headspace anymore. Getting rid of it.
Now you just made the IT pro in me super happy, because, whenever new technology comes out, especially from Microsoft, governance and IT pro admin controls are a core concern. And they're a concern because of sprawl, because of misinformation, even in the enterprise. People want to have this feeling of safety and some hygiene. And of course, as a governance person, as I've been talking about that for a couple decades, hygiene in Microsoft 365 is important. So what do IT pros really need to know about these Copilots? Are they going to be able to manage them or turn them off or control who creates them?
So in the video, you saw that there was a moment when you hit try it or you hit save. What we do at that moment, what you see in that configuration, we actually save that in the file. And it's effectively a JSON file. And we save it where you started that creation. So if you're on the home site, we put this in the site assets folder under a Copilot agents folder. If you're in the document library, you'll actually see that file created right alongside those assets that you picked to initially create that set. So it's a file, and we are leaning into the file paradigm because, for one, we believe people understand what that file, how files work. When you share it, you can put labels on it. You can archive them. You can go to there. Oh, I created it wrong. I can delete it. I can copy it. And it's effectively a file that when you crack open, it's just got the configuration. So what you'll see is, gosh, this thing's got a name. This thing has some instructions. It's got the links to the files that I selected. So it's very transparent about how we're doing that. And we basically load that file. We've got a user experience that is the Copilot experience where we interpret what's there, but then everything else is treated just like a file. So now all the like the file views, the analytics around that, you'll be able to see, because we'll log, when that file gets opened. You can look at some of the analytics that you have. It means that you can search for it, so you can find a file. So all those things that you expect files to do, you will be able to do with this file.
You just made me so unbelievably happy, because honestly, nothing is more annoying than when product makers don't think about the existing infrastructure and ways in which things are managed when they make something new. So the fact that it'll go into the site assets, or it'll just be created there within that document library, and that it is a file that can have sensitivity labels applied to it, that is so smart. On behalf of all the IT pros out there, thank you for doing that, because that's simply going to make our governance and management of these new experiences that much more effective and efficient. Because if I continue that logic, so I'm in a site that I've created, and it's just available for the team that's working on. It could be a very large project. Basically, that Copilot experience is going to be governed by the permissions of the SharePoint site. So meaning if somebody couldn't see that site, they wouldn't be able to interact with that particular agent, correct?
That's correct.
No, yes.
Yeah.
That's great.
And so even the creation of these copilots, right? So we put it, the entry point for the site level into the new menu. So the same people that can create pages, the same people that can create sort of the content on the site, they will get the Copilot agent. But if you're just a reader, if you're like the audience that they're speaking to, you won't be able to create it for that site using that new button. So we did try and just follow what exists with the existing concepts, especially the SharePoint permissioning around that.
Right, because we've been taking feedback on SharePoint and permissioning and all the things that are involved in that for a very long time as a company. And so, you know, and I just want to call out that I'm this excited because this has been happening so fast that I have not been able to keep up on all the good things. But I was sending out my vibrations into the universe that I was hoping you would do it this way. And so to really hear from you that, yes, that's how it's going to be authentically makes me really excited because I know that that's going to remove a barrier for entry and a concern that IT pros and global administrators everywhere have about these new experiences. They're concerned about being able to do that. All of that is so exciting, and you're absolutely hitting on things that are important to IT pros. But business users and stakeholders are going to want to know something else as well. And that is what kind of licensing is going to be required for this new Copilot agent in SharePoint to be available?
This is going to be part of the Microsoft 365 Copilot license. So if you have that, you're going to be able to use this functionality. Yeah.
That is great. So we're just adding more value to that license that folks already have. And I think anybody who's used SharePoint over any period of time is going to want this. This is so exciting. You know, I have been in the SharePoint universe for some time. I'm not going to tell you how long because this is an exciting time and I don't want to depress anyone. But SharePoint has always been the cornerstone of knowledge management in any organization, and you building on top of it. We were in together and all hands inside Microsoft with the alpha of this code right at the beginning of when you were creating it. And it was a demonstration in our staff meeting, and everybody in the group got to play with it and give you feedback. It's such a it hasn't even really been that long, and you've already been in private preview, and now you're in targeted release.
Yeah, we're really excited to bring this to a broader audience. We really want to understand how people are going to use it, whether or not it's a thing that that is going to pick up within our Copilot users. So I'm just really excited that we get to bring this to a broader audience.
Absolutely. And people can, I believe, check out the link below, right, to learn more?
That's right. Yeah, please click on that link, learn more. And just start using it. Like I said earlier, once you start to use it, it clicks as far as what it can do. And hopefully your imagination just goes wild on the types of things you can create to help your team, yourself, and your organization.
Well, and you're going to see us talk about this across the Microsoft 365 Copilot community. There'll be plenty of conversation about it. I'm so excited to have all the resources for folks as they're going along this journey on adoption.microsoft.com. And I'm most excited that you're at the helm of this, CJ. You're a very thoughtful product leader. I've always been impressed by the way that you approach product making and the care that you really authentically have for our user base. So, you know, I know this is intense and it's a crazy pace, but on behalf of the community, thank you so much for everything you're doing. I'm really glad that you're here.
Oh, thank you so much, Karuana. I am just happy to see this out in people's hands and the usage that comes from it.
Product engineering at Microsoft is full of thoughtful leaders just like CJ, and it's such a pleasure to give you an opportunity to really understand what they're thinking about as we build these new things. We really do hear your feedback. We take into account the IT pro experience, and we know that these things have to run at scale. So it's always a pleasure to bring you someone, and the Copilot agents and SharePoint experience is going to be phenomenal. It's an exciting time to be in tech. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you soon.